Another evening draws to a close, Holmes. The fire casts a comfortable glow across these familiar Baker Street rooms, doesn't it? It seems almost a ritual now, as the years advance, to sit here and sift through the embers of our past adventures.
A necessary exercise, Watson, lest the mind grow dull. Which particular exploit occupies your thoughts tonight? Have you been revisiting the affair of the Norwood builder, perhaps, or one of our continental excursions?
Something rather more singular, I confess. I've just put the finishing touches to my account of a case that, well, it possessed qualities quite unlike any other we undertook. I've called it The Adventure of the Flicker Frame Fiend.
Oh, that particular investigation.
Indeed, it concerned that curious device which caused such a stir in its day, the kinetoscope. Those moving pictures, flickering away inside a cabinet, a marvel then, though perhaps less so now. But the events surrounding it, Holmes, they were profoundly disturbing. A stark reminder of how innovation can cast unexpected shadows.
Unsettling, certainly. It presented complexities that touched upon the very nature of perception and the potential misapplication of nascent scientific understanding. I admit to some curiosity, Watson, as to why you chose to chronicle that asterisk-specific affair at this juncture. It carried a weight beyond mere criminality.
It began, as these things sometimes do, not with a dramatic summons, but with a rather perplexed Inspector Hardcastle sitting right there, by the fire. He brought news from Soho, baffling reports concerning a popular new amusement parlor, one dedicated entirely to those kinetoscope machines.
Perplexed indeed. As I recall, Hardcastle was quite at sea. Several individuals, unconnected save for their patronage of this establishment, had collapsed and died some hours after Asterisk leaving. Yet the attending physicians could find no discernible cause, no poison, no injury, nothing tangible.
Precisely. It was utterly confounding. These weren't back-alley dens, Holmes, but brightly lit parlors filled with respectable folk eager for novelty. Imagine the scene. The darkened room, the whirring mechanisms, faces illuminated by the flickering light from the viewing hoods. A genuine sense of wonder.
A sense of wonder rapidly curdling into something else. The kinetoscope was the marvel of the moment, drawing immense crowds. But its very novelty, its mechanism shrouded in mystery for the common man, made it susceptible to darker interpretations once death entered the picture. The inexplicable breeds fear, Watson.
And the popular press certainly fanned those flames. Sensational headlines appeared almost overnight. The phantom flicker, death in the viewing hood. The public, already fascinated by this new technology, began to whisper about the kinetoscope deaths. There was a palpable unease growing in the city, a fear that this new invention harbored some unseen, fatal power.
A classic example of public panic outpacing methodical investigation. The challenge presented was unique. A crime, if crime it was, seemingly devoid of motive, lacking any conventional method, and centered around a piece of technology few truly understood. It demanded a departure from our usual paths. The initial reports, Watson, were perplexing precisely because they defied conventional logic. Mere presence in a room, mere observation of flickering images, causing death, it demanded more than second-hand accounts. It demanded direct personal scrutiny.
Indeed, I recall accompanying you to that Soho establishment. The atmosphere was thick with a peculiar mix of novelty and unease. But it was your intense focus, not on the patrons, but on the apparatus itself, that struck me most.
Observation, my dear fellow, is paramount, whether applied to a footprint, a strand of tobacco ash, or indeed a piece of intricate machinery. One must understand the instrument before one can comprehend its effects, intended or otherwise. I spent considerable time examining the kinetoscope mechanism.
Yes, you peered into its workings with a concentration usually reserved for chemical experiments or obscure manuscripts. It was a facet of your method, I found particularly challenging to chronicle accurately. Your engagement with the purely mechanical, the technological unknown.
Because the usual markers were absent, there was no discernible poison, no obvious weapon in the traditional sense. It became rapidly apparent that if a crime had been committed, its vector lay within the very operation of the device. My knowledge of chemistry, anatomy, and the criminal underworld offered little purchase.
So, you suspected the machine itself was the weapon.
I suspected the asterisk process, the interaction between the machine's output and the human eye, held the key. It was clear that understanding this phenomenon required expertise far removed from Scotland Yard or Baker Street. A different sort of science altogether, one concerned with light perception, the very mechanics of seeing.
Professor Flemming, a very warm welcome to Baker Street. It is a distinct pleasure to have you join us by the fire this evening.
Dr. Watson, Mr. Holmes, the pleasure is entirely mine, though I confess to some curiosity regarding my invitation. My usual haunts are laboratories and lecture halls, not the scenes of the matters Mr. Holmes typically investigates.
Precisely, Professor. And that is why your presence is invaluable. As Holmes and I were reflecting on the peculiar circumstances surrounding the Flicker Frame Fiend, as the papers regrettably dubbed it, it became apparent that conventional methods were insufficient. Your pioneering work in the theoretical underpinnings of optics, particularly concerning visual perception and its thresholds, seemed uniquely pertinent.
Indeed, your treatise, Professor, The Phenomenology of Intermittent Light, published in the Philosophical Transactions, I believe, a landmark study. It demonstrated a grasp of the very fabric of sight that few possess. When faced with phenomena baffling the medical profession and the police alike, it was clear we required insight not into criminal minds, but into the mechanics of perception itself. It was I who suggested Watson extend the invitation.
You are too kind, Mr. Holmes. My work aims purely at understanding the fundamental principles, the intricate dance between light and the human eye. The potential applications, particularly those of a less salubrious nature, are matters I rarely contemplate. My focus remains the expansion of knowledge itself.
And it is that very dedication to foundational principles that we hope might illuminate some of the darker corners of this unusual affair, Professor. Your perspective, untainted by the immediate, grim realities, is precisely what Holmes felt was needed.
It truly is a remarkable age, gentlemen. The pace of invention, it quickens the pulse. One discovery builds upon the next with such rapidity. To be engaged in pure research, delving into the very mechanics of how we perceive the world through light and pattern, it's a profound privilege. My own field, you understand, is largely theoretical. We explore the subtleties of visual phenomena, the frequencies of light, the very thresholds of perception, how the eye and brain interpret sequences and forms. It is the pursuit of understanding for its own sake.
A privilege, Professor, undoubtedly. Yet does the pursuit of pure knowledge absolve the discoverer of responsibility for its application? Consider, hypothetically, research into visual frequencies or patterns. If such knowledge, intended purely theoretically, could be manipulated perhaps to induce profound distress or disorientation in an observer, where does the scientist's duty lie?
Mr. Holmes, that is the very tightrope we walk. The scientist seeks truth, the fundamental laws governing our universe. To imagine abstract principles twisted towards harm, it is a chilling thought. Yet can we stifle discovery for fear of misuse? Where would humanity be if we had? Must we cease exploring the nature of light simply because some might fashion a weapon from its properties?
Perhaps not stifled, Professor, but guided by foresight. Is there not a point where theoretical possibility brushes against practical and potentially perilous reality? Must the inventor not contemplate the darker paths his creation might illuminate, even inadvertently?
It was quite the exchange to witness. Professor Flemming, his mind clearly soaring in the realms of abstract principles, the pure joy of intellectual pursuit evident in his discourse. And Holmes, ever the pragmatist, his focus sharp as ever, relentlessly drawing the line from abstract theory down to the potential for concrete, human consequence. Two brilliant minds, approaching the same precipice from entirely different vantages.
The dilemma is profound, Mr. Holmes. We unlock doors, hoping they lead to enlightenment. We cannot always control who follows us through or what they carry in their hands. The gap between understanding a principle, say, how certain rapid sequences of light might affect the optic nerve, and deploying it with malicious intent. It is a chasm, but one that, I concede, human ingenuity or depravity might bridge.
Precisely, a chasm bridged by intent. And it is the potential for that intent, Professor, that necessitates a degree of caution, perhaps even ethical vigilance, even in the purest of research.
As the embers glow low in the hearth, Professor, our conversation this evening returns again and again to the central quandary of that Flicker Frame affair. The breathtaking promise of new invention, yet the chilling shadow it can cast. The ethical tightrope walked by science. The unforeseen consequences that ripple outwards from the laboratory into the world at large.
Indeed, Dr. Watson, this exchange, particularly Mr. Holmes's rather pointed hypotheticals, reinforces a sobering truth. Discovery cannot be untethered from foresight. Each step forward in understanding the world's mechanisms demands a parallel step in considering its consequences. Ethical vigilance isn't merely advisable. It seems an intrinsic, unavoidable companion to scientific advancement itself.
The tools may change, Professor, from flint knives to kinetoscopes and doubtless beyond. Yet the animating force remains remarkably constant. Human ingenuity, Watson, a capacity as potent for creation as it is for destruction. The true variable lies not in the technology, but in the intent behind its application.
A sobering thought indeed, Holmes, and one explored further, I assure our listeners, in the full account of the adventure of the Flicker Frame Fiend. For those intrigued by the specifics of Holmes's investigation, the intricate unraveling of the plot, and the ultimate resolution of the matter, well, the pages await in my published chronicles. Professor Flemming, our sincere thanks for lending your unique perspective to this evening's reflections.